Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 52, entitled Empowering Men with Bob Smith. Before we get started, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about my Seasons of Joy community Facebook group. This is a free community where women of faith gather together to learn more about the power of coaching, to learn more about the power of perspective, to learn more about creating a life they love, no matter their season or circumstance. Each month, I go live twice in this community. The first call of the month is a workshop where I present and teach on the monthly topic. And the second call of the month is an open coaching call. This is where I take questions on the monthly topic, or really any topic for that matter. And there are two ways to participate in this. Once you join the community, you can watch the streaming workshop on the Facebook group page. Or there is a link found on the page that will allow you to watch the workshop and participate in it via Zoom. The great thing about Zoom is it gives you the opportunity to come on live to be coached. But either way you do it, you have the ability to ask questions, make comments in the chat or comment box in each place. So this month's call is tonight, actually, March 7th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. The topic is the power of wanting and dreaming. I'm so excited to present on this topic. I believe that as adults, we sometimes lose our ability to dream and to want. And the truth is, wanting and dreaming is part of who we are. We are divine beings. We have divine DNA, which includes the ability to create. Creation is such a part of who we are. So come and join me for this month's workshop to learn more about it. Now, on to our podcast. I am so excited to share this interview with Bob. I have met Bob through a couple of coaching cohorts that we've participated in, and I wanted to bring Bob on because I think his message is a powerful one. He helps LDS men turn stress, anxiety, and self-doubt into total empowerment to create their best life. He helps them see how to enjoy and create great relationships, how to increase their wealth or improve their body or their life. He is a life coach for men. I think sometimes we overlook this, that men also struggle, that men also have that anxiety and stress and self-doubt and have forgotten how to dream and wish and want as well. So I think this is a very relevant conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So I'm going to turn the time over to Bob to introduce himself. So here we go.
Yeah, so my name is Bob Smith. That is real. I'm not in the witness protection program or anything like that. Yeah, the focus that for my coaching business is I work with LDS men. It is kind of my niche or the people that I would market to per se. But I've worked with former members of the church or not members of the church. Either way. So it's really men. And my specialty within that is helping men turn stress, anxiety, self-doubt into total empowerment in any area of their life. And that's what I love doing. I love seeing the change happen. And you mentioned just a little bit about my history. And so I'll go into that for just a minute, just because, and maybe it'll help explain why I'm so passionate about, all of this, the work that I do. So I grew up LDS, did all the LDS things, scouting to, priesthood, to going on a mission, to married in the temple. Just felt like I was checking all the boxes and doing all the things that I was supposed to do. And it just seemed like life was kind of lining up, or everything was kind of in order. Went to BYU, got my degree from BYU, all of those things. And then it just seemed like I wasn't finding the happiness, the fulfillment. I was kind of in life, and all of the busyness and all the tasking and all the checklists and all the, I've done every calling in the church, that you could imagine, from young men's to elders quorum to ward mission leader to, whatever. And did I find happiness in a lot of those things? Sure. But there just seemed to be kind of this missing element of fulfillment for me, in my life. And then I think kind of my awakening moment, or I had a couple of big awakening moments, and a lot of them surrounded when I was heading towards divorce from my first wife. And so went through the divorce process. Um, had some really large awakening moments there. One of which was where we kind of did a separation thing for a while, where I was gone from the house for a long period of time. And so one thing that really stuck out to me during that time, where I was gone from, say, 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, when I'd normally been, go to work, come back, do, help the kids with all the thing, dinner, bed, bath, and books, and, all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden I had all this time on my hands, and I didn't really have a calling at the time, which was unusual as well. So I had all this time on my hands, and no responsibilities, or what seemed to me like almost no responsibilities, like having gone from this place of being involved in all the things to then not really having these things. And I kind of discovered that my life really kind of stunk. Like, I didn't have any good friends that I could call on and say, "Hey, I'm kind of struggling. Can we talk tonight, or can we go hang out?" Didn't have any hobbies really that I was interested in, or that I was really pursuing, even though I grew up kind of being interested in all kinds of things. I wanted to start a business. I had a dream of starting my own business, and making a go of that, and hadn't made much progress with that. My body and my health wasn't very good. Like, I was kind of out of shape, and all of these things. So it just seemed like there were all these missing elements of my life. And maybe some of your listeners, and maybe hopefully some of the men that would be listening as well, could kind of relate to that. Almost like I felt like I was taking care of my life in some areas, but in very few areas, but really kind of neglecting a whole range of my life over here. And then the divorce happened, and it kind of felt like my life kind of burned down to the ashes. I felt like I lost virtually everything that I had kind of worked my life for up to that point. And so from that point, it was a decision of, okay, do I go down road number one, which is like a self-destructive type path, and and all the things that would entail, or do I choose door number two and try to start building my life into what I want it to be? And so that's when I decided to choose door number two. And so I started working out, exercising. And while I was working out, I had Tony Robbins in my ears, or Brendan Burchard, or Dean Graciosi, or Brooke Castillo, or Mel Robbins, or Brene Brown, or I had all those things kind of going. I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is pretty cool. This is amazing. I normally just listen to like conference talks or scriptures or whatever, very much ingrained in that. And I hadn't really explored this whole other world of thought leaders. And as I started getting my body healthy, my mind healthy, then it just kind of led me down some other paths, and I was able to more clearly see, hey, if everything has been kind of stripped out of my life, now how do I want to take where I am now and build it into what I want it to be? So then it's like, okay, I want this in my life, so I go do that. Then I wanted this in my life, so I go do that. Then I want this in my life, so I go do that. And then it turned into, something kind of, more beautiful that way.
I love that. I think that that is, in a way, I guess you could say it was a gift, right?
100%.
I know I'm not going to discount how hard divorce can be. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. But on the other side of it, you can see the beauty from the ashes, right? The opportunity to really, I mean, there's a lot of us that don't get that opportunity to strip everything away. Not that it was a fun process, but
Yeah,
to
it was
just
not.
strip everything away and go, wow, okay, now what do I want to create from that place? That's pretty incredible to be able to
Yeah.
take door number two
Yeah. Yeah.
intentionally, right?
So yeah, just
Um,
just like you said, I think you said it really beautifully. It's when you're going through something like that, it's not fun. It's not easy. I wouldn't recommend someone to go get a divorce, tomorrow just to, hit the reset button on their life and say, "Oh, I can rebuild from this place," or whatever. It was really lots of painful, things that were part of it, lots of struggles, lots of challenges, all kinds of emotions that you can, any range of emotions you can possibly imagine. But that's very true. What you said is that from the ashes, what literally felt like my life kind of being burned down in front of me to where there's no semblance of what was there before left, then it forced me to think, what do I want in my life? And then how do I build from this place, which is it's a really beautiful thing, because it was an amazing kind of wake up call to say, what is it that I want in my life? Which is, I think, something that a lot of us don't really think about on a regular basis. Like it's kind of like we get in the mode of doing life without really stopping and pausing and thinking, what do I really want in life? Is this really where I want to put my attention? Is this really where I want to be? Is this who I want to interact with? Is this really like where I see myself going in the next, 5 or 10 years? I think as humans, we don't do that just because it's so easy to kind of get into the program of things and all the shoulds and the to-dos and whatever else, and then wake up and say, gosh, my life isn't really what I want it to be. And so until we have those moments and maybe those check-ins to say, well, what do I want it to be instead?
Yeah, yeah. I think that is a good point. I think we do kind of get in the motion. It's almost like we get swept away in life, right? And then pretty soon we're downriver. We don't know what's happened. So, yeah, that's so good. So at this point, you're divorced, you're listening to thought leaders. I have all those in my ear as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so something happened to kind of take you to the coaching world. It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just in listening to all the thought leaders, trying to get my mindset right, my body right, my health right, so I was trying to work on all of these things at the same time. And it just felt like I've really for a long time felt like there's more of me to give than just in the job that I'm at with corporate, and that there's some skills that I'm really kind of underutilizing or maybe not even utilizing at all that I think I could put out in the world that would really, make a significant difference. And I had never thought about necessarily becoming a coach, uh, although I love the self-help and the self-development kind of things. So especially once I was divorced, I could just with the men that I hung out with, that I was with, during that time, it just seemed like this was a space where men could use other men. And because, like I mentioned before, there was no one that I could really call on to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or "Hey, what do you think about this?" From my perspective, especially in the LDS men community that I serve, I think a lot of us can go into that lone wolfer place and just say, I'm going to handle it all on my own. I don't want to let anything out, especially if there's maybe a little bit of shame there, or maybe even a lot of shame there, because reaching out for help means that I'm not doing, might mean I'm not doing everything that I really should be doing. And if I were doing all the things right, that I should be doing, then my life wouldn't feel this way and would be way better. So I don't want to let anyone know that I'm not, right?
Yeah.
And I think that causes us to maybe pull back and pull in instead of really reach out. And so that was really one big lesson learned. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I can create like a tribe that would then serve these men in this way, that would provide like a safe space where we can actually show up as real human beings and and do this. Can I share with you one experience I had with an elders quorum
Yeah, I'd
lesson?
love it. Yeah, I'd
This one
love
was
it.
really profound for me. Is So if you can imagine this, so LDS community, we talk about eternal marriage, right? Married in the temple and those kinds of things. May not mean a lot to people who are not in the LDS church, but uh, being married for eternity is one of the kind of beliefs that we hold. And so eternity is a long time, right? And so it's kind of like we're going to be together, a pretty long time. And so this is a long commitment, even that exists even beyond the doors of death. Um, so my marriage at this time was heading towards the end, and the elders quorum, one of the members of the elders quorum presidency, calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, Bob, we'd like you to teach a lesson next week." And I said, "Oh gosh, what lesson are you talking about?" And he said, "We want you to teach President Eyring's or Elder Eyring's, I think it was eternal marriage, something or other, lesson from the ensign." And my first thought was, "Are you sure you want me teaching this lesson? Because I'm not sure that I would be the, pinnacle of examples, especially not at this moment, to be, instructing anybody in this way." We've done counseling for years at that point. I'd really leaned into all of that stuff. So I told him, I said, I'd be happy to do it, but just know that, my marriage is really struggling right now. And I also want you to know that I'm willing to do this, but if I do this, I want you to know that I'm going to be totally open and totally real with what's really going on. And I'm going to ask that of others as well. So I'm going to be super open and super vulnerable, which is not typical for an elders quorum lesson. He's like, "Well, I don't want you doing anything illegal." I'm like, "I'm not going to set the building on fire or anything like that." But I said, "I'm not going to kind of hold back in this way. Like I'm going to be open and real." And so when I went to that and did that, so he said, "That's fine, let's do it." So I went to that elders quorum lesson and stood up, and then I asked everybody a few questions. I said, "First, just to let you guys know, this elders quorum lesson is going to be very different than the other ones that you've probably experienced in your lifetime. So if you don't want to be here or could be uncomfortable with this, now's the time to stand up and leave. So I'm just inviting you guys to leave if you want to leave now." There's probably maybe 30 people in the room, at that time. I said, "Okay, sounds like everybody is, settled in." So then I went right into some questions where I said, "How many of you grew up with imperfect parents? Raise your hand." So every hand went up. Then I said, "How many of you have ever had an interaction with a close family member, maybe, your spouse, your child, whoever it might be, and came away from the interaction and wish that you had shown up differently than you did in that time?" Every hand went up. And then I asked, I can't remember the other question I asked, but it was something like, "Let's just set the stage here that we all have, a lot of imperfections. There's all of us have grown up in imperfect situations. All of us have shown up imperfectly in many ways. And now let's have a real discussion." And then that set the stage for what came next. And I just said, "Hey, you guys, just so you know, I've really been struggling in my marriage. It feels like it may be coming to the end." And I was just super open and vulnerable, which was something that was really hard for me to do at that time in my life. I was normally kind of closed off and wanted to put on the uh, the faceplate of perfection, so that that's what people saw, because that was the way I grew up, knowing that I would be loved if that was the case. And what's funny is I talked to the bishop of the ward several months after that point, and he said, "I just want to let you know that I've had probably 10 people from the elders quorum contact me afterwards just to talk about their life and to open up in a very open and genuine way. And every single one of them have referenced that lesson that you taught in that elders quorum meeting." And so all of these types of experience just kind of really spoke to me and said, I think men are hurting on the inside and they don't really have a place to turn. I think these men want to have a tribe and they want to be open and they want to be understood and they want to be able to kind of free themselves of this burden or this thing that they feel, and don't really have a place to do that. I think the elders quorum was one concept of where it could or maybe should be happening, but it really doesn't. I think it's more often than not that we put on our church face and don't want to really expose what's underneath. But anyway, I just want to share that with you
No,
as an
I
experience.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think that that is um such a good illustration of how we can create a safe space for people to really be open and vulnerable. And really, I think that's what we all crave on some level, that we can really be ourselves, faithful, but ourselves, right? Like, and just having a community that that understands that, and So I see a great need in that. I even in my audience, right, as a woman, we tend to talk a lot more than men, but we have those same feelings. We've had
Mm.
those same experiences where you go and there's this ideal, which of course we want to preach the ideal, but we also have to accept the messy on our way to get where we want to go. And so
Yeah.
I think for women and men, it can be challenging to open up and share some of those vulnerable parts of ourselves. But it sounds like you created the perfect space for that, where it didn't detract from a lesson on eternal marriage. It actually reinforced the message of eternal marriage.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So as you became certified, is that so in those moments, is that when you're like, okay, I've got something to offer here. How will I do it?
Yeah. So
Or
I met my current wife, Molly, and she's a coach and one of the best in the biz, in my opinion. I'm not just trying to say that because I'm married to her, but
I 100% agree.
but she's
100%
pretty
agree.
good.
She's masterful. She
Yeah,
really is. She really is.
masterful is a great way to put it. So her and I talked about it at various points. I knew that she was a coach. That was actually one thing that attracted me to her, just because I would Facebook stalk her before we started dating. And I'm like, gosh, she puts out some cool material. Like this, like she really knows what she's talking about. It felt very aligned with all the things that I had learned and what I wanted to do and all of that. So internally inside of me, I've got a message. I've got a message that I can share. I don't know what my platform is. I don't know what the path forward is in order to go share that or to support people or to help people in some way. But I feel like there's something inside of me that wants to get out and, help people that are out there. Um, so yeah, then she just encouraged me to look into coaching. I'm like, yes, I'll look into it. Yes, I'll look into it. Yes, I know I want to do it. I'm even friends with, Brooke Castillo, and she encouraged me to do it too. She's like, Bob, we need more men in this space. You got to come do this. So, I mean, I had some influence or some push alongs to say, hey, come and do this. And honestly, if I'm just being real open and vulnerable for a minute, is the biggest hangup that I had to doing it was not the money, was not the time commitment, was not taking on a business venture. It was the idea of sitting in a class of people and me being coached and being just open and vulnerable and just putting all of my what I consider to be, dirty laundry out there. I could not, when my wife would tell me about that stuff, I could not imagine people sitting in a room and just allowing people just to hear everything that's going on. Like I thought I would probably want to die if that were the case, let alone one person like a coach or a counselor or whatever. But I mean, sitting in a room with all these people that are listening to me share all the all the things that I'm embarrassed to say are inside of my head, right? And so it was really, it was like it was doing the work through coaching and through counseling and going really deep and internal and like really, I don't know, kind of exposing myself to my own demons, if you will, or my own things, insecurities, vulnerabilities, whatever you want to call those things that are, inside of us, and doing enough of that to build the muscle to be strong enough to where then it's like, okay, now I'm actually ready to go do this. That was honestly my biggest hang
Yeah.
up to it. And once I was like, okay, you know what? It's time, let's get this done. And so then I signed up and started down that path.
I
So
love that. That is actually pretty similar to me. Like I found coaching and I was so fascinated and I've talked about that on my podcast before. And when I went to my first live event of a coach, I had no intention of being a coach. Like if you would have asked me, "Oh, so what are you going to do? Are you going to be a coach?" I would have said no. That was I just wanted to understand it better. And I'd never been coached up to that point either, because that was a similar thing. Like the idea of like opening up. I'm the observer. I like to watch people share, not share.
yeah,
But I've learned, I love how you referred to it as a muscle, because it is a muscle. And you also learn that you can feel the discomfort of the share. And it's not like people are given horrible, awful details, right? We're just being honest with kind of things we're thinking and feeling,
Mhm.
but that you can feel that uncomfortable, that discomfort, because on the other side of it is freedom. And the other side
100%.
of that is helping others that are feeling the exact same way, going through the exact same thing. The circumstance may look different, but they're thinking similar things, feeling similar things. And so if they can hear you be vulnerable and share those things, then that empowers them to feel safe to do the same. So it's like once you start opening yourself up, you kind of crack that shell, right? It's not as scary. It actually feels really good.
So true. It's so true because what was in my head, right, wrong, or indifferent was don't open up and don't show what's really there, because what if someone really discovers that something's wrong with me, and then I won't be loved, I won't be accepted, I'll be rejected for who I am, or whatever that might be. And the crazy thing is that that was just my belief. And what that came from probably my growing up years or whatever, that I had to show up this way in order to have my needs met. But then when we actually experience it in reality and we put ourselves out there that way, it's like, oh, this is actually the opposite. This is the way that we actually do connect with others, is by showing up and exposing our vulnerabilities and being open. Because otherwise, people have nothing really to connect to us on, when it's just kind of this I don't know, made up version of ourselves that we think is the one that people should like, when what people really like is just the real person that's down inside of there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
had something pop into my head just a minute. Perfectionism actually blocks us from connection,
absolutely.
right? Because it eliminates that ability to one human heart to another human heart. That perfection is like a shield that doesn't
100%.
allow for that. So I love that. I think that is so beautiful. So you decided as you chose to move forward in coaching, that was going to kind of be your focus, was men of the LDS faith as
Yep.
they kind of navigate with anxiety and all those things that come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just in going back to the concept of just kind of creating your best life. What do you want? Where are you getting stuck? What's next for me? What are my next steps? Like my next baby steps, not big leaps, but just what's my one next little baby step to take in the direction of where I want to go, and being more intentional about that. I just felt like there was a need out there and just having grown up in the LDS community as an LDS young man. Yeah, I understand the culture, I understand the doctrine, I understand all the inner workings there, and I also understand the things that are from that, having been in that culture, that can really impact the goals that we set, where we want to go, the ideals of eternal family life, of the celestial kingdom. I know some of these words, some of your listeners may not um, totally understand, but just some of these concepts that I think really block us, that say, unless you're living a certain way, you're really not good enough, and therefore we need to hide that. And then that's like what you said, the shield comes up and kind of blocks us from human connection. It blocks us from connection with ourselves too, which is kind of interesting. It's almost like we install this plate that's between our head and our heart, that says, oh, don't go down into that place because that's scary. I'm just going to stay up here in my head and process everything up there and try to just do all the things from my head, as opposed to really dropping down into my body, dropping in my heart, really feeling this thing through, trusting in my intuition, and really connecting with myself at a genuine level, so that then I'm actually able to open up and to connect with others too. I think that's
Yeah.
actually one of the biggest challenges that exist. And honestly, that's one of the biggest things I work with the men that work they're in my program on, which might sound kind of funny, is just connecting your head to your heart again. Like, okay, here's what you're thinking. How does that feel inside your body? Let's actually go in your body for a minute. What's the emotion that comes up for you when you think this or when you believe this? Does that seem like it's useful for you in your life, or do you not think it's useful? Like, what direction is this thing leading you in? What's the result of all that? So, right, I mean, working the model, but really doing it from a place of true feeling so that they
Mhm.
can feel again, which in my opinion is kind of where our true power lies, is in reconnecting with our heart and soul and the essence of who we are. That's the
Yeah.
doing that is the absolute um, and helping the men that I work with do that is just the greatest gift I can imagine. So it's just been it's amazing for me.
Well, and don't you find, I would guess, I'm guessing here, but do you find that that is really a unique experience? Something that they haven't done on a regular basis is connecting to the emotional side of themselves.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's like we know something is off, something is wrong, something isn't working. Our relationship with our spouse doesn't seem to be working, and we don't quite know why. Like, what are the blocks that are in place? Many of my men that I coach, a lot of times it'll be a relationship with a spouse or relationship with a child. That's pretty common. Um, but a lot of them believe that they're, not good fathers. Like, if my son doesn't do X, Y, or Z, or if he's showing up in this way, then that freaks me out as a dad, because that means in my mind that I'm not a good father. And then as you can, work that one through, then we show up in not good father ways, like we're telling, we're forcing, we're controlling, we're whatever, and we're not really connecting. And when I stop with these men and we just have a minute to evaluate that from a place of love, compassion, and non-judgment, and they can actually just sit in it for a minute and understand why they did what they did, why they took the actions they did, is because of the feelings and the thoughts that they were having. When we can just sit in that for a minute in a place of just like I said, non-judgment, and from a pure place of compassion, like honest to goodness compassion for ourselves, just knowing there's a reason why that's there and a reason why we're showing up the way we are. Then it's like, oh, now I have the ability to shift this if I want to. This is the thing that has been working for me. And now I actually have the agency and the ability to then make the shift that I want to make, so that I can create the relationships that I want to have, or create the money that I want to have, or create the experience of life overall that I want to have. And it's such a beautiful thing.
I love that. I think that is such a foundational piece for all of us, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, was that idea of connecting with self. Like, that really is such a basic thing, because if we connect with ourselves, we can connect with God and we can connect with others. Like, that piece is in some ways the hinge point, because we block ourselves from connecting with God or with other people when we do view ourselves from judgment, criticism, shame, right? All those negative feelings really does hinder us. And so I can imagine, especially with men, and this could be totally stereotyping, so bear with me, but just that, I think society has told men that they shouldn't feel things. They've got to be strong, they've got to be the provider, they've got to be in charge. They've, like, a lot of masculine energy is powerful, is important, and there isn't, emotions aren't necessarily necessary, or, but you've kind of shown how that you can flip that on its head. Like, that really isn't
Gosh,
the way.
it's so true. Yeah, and you said that just so beautifully too. And I do think that there is a societal kind of expectation, or maybe we've done it to ourselves to a large degree too, that men don't have feelings, or that feelings aren't important, and feelings are kind of a nuisance and get in the way of what's really important, when feelings are and emotions are the absolute, juice of life. I mean, that's why anything happens in our world, period. And so when we understand that, and what's been really interesting with some of the men that I've coached is they felt so stuck or so frustrated or whatever it might be, or so fearful of moving forward. Like, I want to make a change in my career, but it feels like stress to do so. And so then they kind of go into this indecision type place. Like, I don't know if I should stay in my job or quit my job or whatever. And so there's a lot of that with men I work with especially in this midlife, place of like, gosh, I've been doing this a long time, but I don't know if I want to continue and whatever else. But one thing that has stuck out that has been really amazing to work with men on is to identify the emotion that's underneath. Let's say it's fear, but then to really embrace that emotion. So instead of treating it like a disease, treat it like the cure. Treat it like this is the most valuable piece of information that you could possibly uncover. So why is that fear there? What is this fear trying to teach you? Well, what is the gift that this is trying to give you? And so when we really like open up to it, as opposed to like shove it down, which I did for, 4 decades of my life and didn't work real well. It made me sick and mad and frustrated and, not able to connect with anybody type thing, even though I thought I was doing all the right things. But it's really like the gift of the emotion. They're really like, it's like a gauge in our car that's just meant to communicate a piece of information to us, and a helpful piece of information to us at that. So when we treat them like a disease, it's like we've kind of covered up this thing that has been built into us that is meant to communicate information to us, and it stopped us from receiving that information and the inspiration, I would even dare say, the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration that's there for us to unlock. There's one guy that I coached. I remember that he felt really stuck, and he hates the feeling of stuck. I think feeling stuck was like the main thing that he, hated more than anything. And he's in sales. He's an amazing guy. But he got stuck all the time. And what was interesting, as we coached through that and we went into the stuck and we uncovered that and talked about it a little bit more, what was amazing is what you said a minute ago was how we flipped it on its head, to where instead of stuck being a problem, he could actually look forward to the feeling of stuck, because then the thought or the idea was, oh, maybe this is my opportunity to pause in my life and to reflect. And so actually getting stuck is the best thing that could happen to me, because then this is going to reveal to me the next step forward to become, to, gain momentum and make progress and go, sell more stuff and make tons of money and have cool experiences with your family and do all the things. And so now it's almost like, can we look forward to having some of these feelings, which almost sounds like completely counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
can we actually look forward to having some of these feelings that we would prefer to, throw away in the garbage and act like they like, don't exist, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I have grown to believe that our emotions are our teachers. They really are, like you said, that's information that will help us if we will. And I love how you described it was an opportunity to step back and reflect, because I think oftentimes people view stuckness as a problem. Just like you said, like, oh, this is a problem. I don't know what to do. And we leave it there. But if we could step back and go, huh, I wonder why I'm feeling stuck. What's going on? What can I look at? What can I consider? How can I get curious about this? So that is one of the greatest things that I've taken away from coaching and this work, is just the power that emotion has in all directions. Like, it's powerful when we acknowledge it and use it, but it's powerful the opposite way when we try to hide it and bury it.
It
That
is.
power doesn't serve us. It just makes us miserable, right? But it's
Yeah.
powerful either way.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of harness the power that will move you forward. So I love that. So
So true.
when you work with men, we've talked a lot about areas that you've helped them in. Is there one overarching area that you find is the most difficult for the men you work with? Is an area that they struggle in, or have we kind of touched on those?
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on those. But I mean, the one that stands out to me is is the feeling of defensiveness. So so for instance, in our relationships, in our intimate relationship, marriage relationship, that can be one of the most challenging areas, I would say, for any human on the planet, in my opinion. I would say marriage relationship was made as a very special place to uncover all of the things that we would maybe even rather not, be uncovered. I mean, it has a way of turning up all the stones, and there's really nothing that can be hidden in a marriage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so it's our opportunity to truly be vulnerable, to truly be honest, to really show up, or not show up, whatever it might be, right? And so I've coached a lot of men in that space, and I guess one of the most powerful things that comes from that is the concept of defensiveness and why they get defensive. Like, it's they're trying to do something kind, or what they think is kind, for their wife doesn't acknowledge it, or says something that then kind of sparks them to go to the place of, that must mean I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing good enough, or I'm not good enough, or something about them or their identity or who they are, what they're making that mean. So of course, then the walls of defense go up, because I can't, if I feel like my identity is truly under attack, then that doesn't work real well for me, right? So um, I would say that's one area that kind of stands out, as when we can stop and understand why we make that mean this, why whatever they say makes something mean that about us or about our identity. Can we understand that maybe a little bit more deeply? Where would that come from? Why would you believe that? Do you want to continue to believe that? And then let's try to shift away from that to where it doesn't have to mean that. Or if that thought is still coming to you, or that feeling is still coming to you, how do you take a break from that moment and then check in with yourself, allow that to be, understand yourself, kind of like, I guess, going back to the concept of really opening up and embracing the emotions that we have and the feelings that are there to try to teach us something. And then when we're ready to kind of shift into a more powerful place, and then show up from a more powerful place, it's really like that the stopping point between the feeling and the next action. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like the point of decision that says,
Yeah.
okay, I'm having this reaction, and I want to try to believe that it isn't my wife that's making me feel this way, or my child that's making me feel this way,
Yes.
or my boss that's making me feel this way. I'm really trying hard. I don't really believe that right now. I really think it is my wife that's making me feel this way, right? But this is our opportunity to pause there, if we have the awareness and the wherewithal to do so, understand ourselves, and then try to shift to where we can show up from a more powerful place. And then it really shifts the whole dynamic of the marriage, because then I'm truly settled within myself. I understand me, I understand where I'm coming from, and I understand what I want in my relationship. And now I actually have the tools to then go create that within this relationship that I have.
Yeah, I love that. I had a few thoughts pop in my head. One was Viktor Frankl's the between stimulus and response, right? There's agency in there. And I think so often as humans, we lose sight of where agency kicks in, right? We think that we don't have agency sometimes in those situations.
Yep.
And the other thing is, it was so good to hear kind of the man side, because I have seen this in my own marriage, right? Like, men are making it mean something about them, that they're doing something wrong, but women are doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? The example you gave where men were doing things and their wife didn't necessarily appreciate it or whatever. And on the women's side, they're wanting the men to read their mind. And of course, if they really loved him, they would do it this way. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
so interesting, the two sides of that coin, right?
Yep.
And on
Yeah.
both sides, they're making it mean something that it doesn't necessarily mean, but they're
Yeah.
but they've
Yeah.
got that defense, and right, the first act of war is defense
Yeah. Yep.
too. So
Yeah.
that's such good information. Yeah.
It's really about what it comes down to is believing that there's something deficient in me. Like whatever's happened, I'm deficient. Something's wrong with me. I'm deficient in some way in this relationship. There's something wrong with me. And I guess to everyone listening, that's just not true. That's not the
Yeah.
case. That's a thought that maybe, or a thought pattern that's maybe been there for a while. And there's a reason why that thought pattern has been there for a while, and it probably does date back, quite a ways, I would guess. And typically with the men I work with, we do dig back into that stuff sometimes to uncover where that is, just so there's greater awareness, so they understand where that's coming from when it does show up, so that then we do have the agency to go in and make powerful changes in that moment or understand it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess I would love everyone who hears this to, let's not believe that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's work to try to shift away from that. Even if you just try to shift like 5% away from that. And so instead of something's deficient in me, say, man, I would sure like to believe that I'm not deficient. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
can do that right now, but I would love to believe that I'm not deficient in any way.
Yeah.
Maybe someday I could even believe that I'm not deficient. Even when my wife says this, or my child does that, or my boss does this, maybe I could still believe that I'm not deficient. Or man, I would sure like to believe that I'm not deficient.
Yeah.
Instead of jumping to this other place of I'm the most amazing person ever and there's nothing, I do everything great or whatever, but which,
Right.
we can't really leap to immediately. But even just loosening that up a little bit, like maybe
Yeah.
this doesn't need to mean anything about me. Maybe this doesn't need to mean that I'm deficient. Maybe I'm not really deficient. I would really
Yeah.
like to believe that's true for
Yeah.
me as well.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's possible
it's
that I'm
possible.
not deficient. It's
Yeah.
possible that I'm great just how I am,
Yeah.
which
Maybe
is
I'm just exactly right, exactly the way I am. Yeah.
yeah.
What if that were true?
What
Right.
if that were true? An imperfect human, which
Yeah.
we all are. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. So we're getting close to wrapping up. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I love this idea of working on the thought that your value is not dictated by anything else and that you
Mhm.
are not diminished in any way. So I think that's a great takeaway. But is there anything else that you would love to leave my listeners with?
Yeah. So one thing would be separating the experience you're having, or whatever this other person's doing, from the way that you're feeling. Like if we can just start by recognizing that whatever we're observing out here in our world is not creating our feeling. It truly is what we think about what's happening in our world, or about what we're observing or what we're hearing from somebody, that's creating our experience. So if we can even just start to even want to try to believe that, or to want to try to understand that, I think that can be really powerful and a really good step. Like almost like it seems like what my wife is saying to me is making me feel really bad about myself right now. But if I could just pause right there and say, you know what, I know intellectually that that's not true. I'm creating the feeling here for me. It doesn't feel true that she's not making me feel this way right now. But even just leaning into the idea of like, man, I would like to believe that this isn't, happening that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just say, secondly, the more that we can own and try to really understand the feelings that we're having, and to be okay with that, and to know that it's totally okay to have even thoughts that we'd rather not think, or feelings that we'd rather not have. We can't even begin to manage all of the things that are going through our mind and heart and body on any given day. We can't even begin to try to manage that from any practical level. So the more that we can allow those to be there, and allow feelings to happen, thoughts to be there, and then know and recognize that we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings, we are the thinker and we are the feeler. And when we can really embrace that, I think that's when we truly become the creator of our life. There's no problem for this feeling or thought to be there. But now I get to choose whether I continue to believe that or continue to think that or continue to feel this way. But yeah, it's if we can really kind of lean into that piece of it, that's when we can really become powerful creators. I think the powerful creators that we were meant to be, that we are created to be.
Yeah, I love that. We are the thinker and the feeler. That
Yeah.
is, I love that. I love that. And just that idea of separating your emotion from your experience. Because when we do that, that releases blame and shame, right? And we can just be with whatever we're feeling without judgment or anything like that. So
Yep. Yes.
separation is a huge step to gaining awareness and moving towards um, a life you want to create. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
love that.
And none of this work is meant to make us non-human or to be superhuman. I think the work that we're about in coaching is to help us really embrace the humanness and the amazingness that the human experience really is. Like if we
Yeah.
can really like lean into this is part of the full human experience, I think that's where we can really start to enjoy the full human experience as well. Even the parts that I would rather not experience too, right? I mean, there's moments where I feel totally stuck, where I feel totally pissed off, where I feel totally like, I don't know how to handle any part of my life at this moment. Like that happens all the time, right? But the more that I can lean into that and not really judge myself or beat myself up for having that experience, the quicker you can actually move through that process to then find a more powerful place and move forward from a more powerful place too, to allow those things to really be.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on too before we leave is the idea of a powerful place. I think sometimes we can misconstrue power as like big and exaggerated and just like kind of a big force, but it really isn't that. Powerful means we have control over our own self, that we're sure in ourself, we're confident in ourself, we feel good in our skin being us and choosing and doing and acting the way that is aligned with us. So I love that you have stated that, because really as we can embrace that power that we have within us, that's where the beauty comes from. And again, it ties back to that relationship with self, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said that just really beautifully. So well said. Power is choice. Power comes from agency. And when we feel kind of out of control or powerless, it's because we believe that we don't have any ability to make a choice in this certain situation. And until we understand the thoughts and beliefs and the feelings that we're having and believe that we have no control over that experience of what's happening, because the program that's in our mind and just like the automatic thing that kind of comes up when this happens, like once we can make that separation and understand it and gain that awareness, that's when we put the power of agency back in our hands. So I mean, the way you said it was beautiful. That true power comes from having true choice and true agency, and understanding that we have the power to have that choice and to experience our life the way we want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. So where can people find you? All the things.
My website is powerfulmormonman.com. And yeah, I'm on Facebook as well. Yeah, come on out, and love to help whoever I possibly can.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love the work I do.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for being here. I think that um, coaching is such a awesome profession to be in, but it's also very needed. I think that they're, especially men, I can see in that space that to have a resource like you is amazing. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, your time, and your insight. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you
So
so much,
fun.
Bob.
Thank you so much for having me. So fun to be with you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.